comes from being transparent, being honest, having the data to support the interventions that are put into play for a child, and making sure that all along the way, the parent is with you on that journey. And then when it comes time, when and if the child requires that individualized education program or plan, they understand that this is a work in progress. It can be amended at any time. You can have another IEP meeting a month later if something's not working right. That the goal here is to collectively work as a team, but also trust the educational professionals that are working with your child. They've went to the master's programs. They've done the training. They've been a part of many, many years of working with special education students.
Welcome to the podcast. There's a promise at the heart of special education law that every child, regardless of their disability, has the right to be educated with their non-disabled peers to the greatest extent possible. It's called the least restrictive environment, LRE. But what does it actually take to make that promise a reality? Today, we are talking to a leader who has dedicated his career to that very question. We are joined by Christopher Kinney, a specialist in special education and the superintendent of Mountainside Public Schools in New Jersey. Chris, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We would love to start with your journey. How did it happen? What made you come into education? And the reasons that you came in, do they still exist?
Sure. Well, I guess you have to go back to the fact that it started off when I was coaching with my father, knowing that as a 20-year-old coaching wrestling, that I was able to affect a younger generation positively. And I'll keep using that term as it kind of, threads through my journey. Whereas I went into special education, decided that was going to be my route to affect a smaller population, so to say, very positively on their educational journey. And then throughout that, those years, having the knowledge of I want to go ahead and utilize my resources, my knowledge, my talents to affect more and more individuals, had led me to then becoming a director of special services for 13 plus years in another district. And then from then on, knowing that I had the skill set to not only deal with special ed, but also budgeting, curriculum, and many other different areas, led me to the idea of potentially taking on a larger role as a school superintendent. Fast forward to now landing in Mountainside as the school superintendent here in a fabulous district that is really a joy and a pleasure to be a part of. So that's kind of where my journey has led me. Always in the back of my mind, having the goal of affecting the educational journeys of as many students as possible throughout their careers.
That sounds exciting. I think it takes a lot for us to be here. Almost every educator. It's not an easy job.
No, I got a couple of gray hairs that are still there. They don't go away. And so definitely not an easy job. I appreciate the ability to talk to people out there that would be watching the podcast and, getting them a little bit more aware about our topic today.
And I'm super excited about that topic, right? Because it's not something that, at least in the current environment, everyone's talking about. We had this discussion, say, few years back, a lot more than what we are having right now. Right now, it's about the budgets and AI and everything else, the shiny new thing, which keeps happening in education.
Yeah, definitely. I think there are different ebbs and flows and trends in education that, I've seen. I've been in education now 26, going on 27 years. So it's definitely seen its peaks and valleys of different topics and hot topics or hot button discussions and what comes about, what's the next big thing that we have to worry about or push forward. You mentioned AI, and that is the caveat of every superintendent, every school district that is looking to push forward in the next generation of students. Period. Bottom line. So
Yeah. And from there, let's just jump back into the least restrictive environment. Because
go right ahead.
when you hear this term, it sounds like a lot of jargon. And
Right.
when you look at it from a fundamental human promise, what LRE stands for, why do you think why is it so critical and why do we ignore it so much?
So the term least restrictive environment obviously is a federal term. It's a state term, and although it comes about in conversations on a local level, in simplest terms, it basically means giving a child the opportunity to be a part of a class with his or their non-disabled peers to the best extent possible where they're going to make meaningful progress. And that really is the crux of it all, is that meaningful progress. As a school administrator, as a teacher, as a case manager, you have to be fully honest with everybody involved as to whether or not that child is truly making that meaningful progress. When it comes to looking at measurable goals and achieving those or continuously to make progress on those, whether it's getting the child specific accommodations, assistive technology, all that encompasses that goal of that least restrictive environment, and being able to say to a parent and a child, this is the right place for you to be and your child to be.
I mean, the moment you say this, right, like, and I totally hear the meaning, there would also be misconceptions that parents would have, and even some teachers would have. What
Right.
would that look like?
So misconceptions would be that, much like a doctor's office and going in and getting triaged and saying, this is what you're going to need to feel better, doesn't mean that it's going to cure you. So there's a misconception with teachers and parents, and more so along the sides of the parents, where, being in the LRE and being, given what you are going to be, the child needs, doesn't necessarily that a child on a second grade reading level is going to catch up to.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
please report to the gym.
This is reporting to the gym.
Gym.
So just because a child's in LRE does not mean that they're going to make total leaps and bounds, and by the end of the year, they are on a second grade reading level, are now going to be on a fifth grade reading level up to their grade level peers. I mean, that's why they need the supports, because they are in a special education program. It would be nice, and I always say to the people that I work with, particularly when I was a director, our job is to put ourselves out of a job.
Yeah.
As weird as that sounds. So you're trying to make the student the best student possible, where they don't need special education programming. They don't need accommodations. That they're going to build the capacity within themselves to not need anyone's help or any other device or any other accommodation. That's the ultimate goal. But, going back to the example of being a medical doctor and saying, listen, you're going to be able to, you have this problem. It's going to limit your abilities to walk.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to give you the capacity to walk well. Will you ever walk perfect? Probably not. But that's okay. As long as you can get from point A to point B in the manner in which you want, in a timely manner, then we've succeeded.
100% agree with you on the fact that the job of special educators is to make sure that they're not needed, that they make themselves redundant.
Right. Yeah, it sounds weird, but it is the purpose.
And I
I
think
think
that
it's the only job out there. That might be the only job out there that has that purpose.
with the way things are shaping up, I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's the only job out there which is doing that.
No. Right. No, it's definitely not within our generation, or I think the generation after that, that it's going to be a case for us putting ourselves out of a job.
It's a whole new topic of plethora of things that we can discuss in that, because I think the world of jobs itself has changed significantly.
No doubt. No doubt. It truly has. I mean, even with the with the level of social media, that has played in children, and it's a different type of student now that we're dealing with, as opposed to the ones and you look at the research back in 95, 99, 97, when social media became a little bit more prevalent. um, I don't think that we thought that it would be this effective, not effective, effective of the students, and what type of student they are now, as opposed to 20 something years ago. What the type of student that was then is definitely not the type of student that's now,
Yeah,
because of that factor.
absolutely. And I think, and coming from the job side, because
Please send them to Mrs. K. Any students left in class?
Students left.
K.
I happen to have my offices in a school building, so therefore I do get the announcements.
that's lovely.
Yeah.
And looking from a new teacher perspective, right, like who's about to join your district, what would the inclusion model look like? How would you make sure that they're successful in creating that environment?
A new teacher coming in, being in a school district nowadays in New Jersey, there's a lot of fluctuation in staff,
Yeah,
right? It is an educator's market, so to say. You know how they say, like, it's a buyer's or seller's market? It is an educator's market, to where you are seeing people leave districts that they've been in for 10 to 12 to 14 to maybe 15, 16 years, and saying, I'm going to go to a different district because I can advance, or I can make more money, or whatever it is. But times have changed where you're going to see one educator stay for 20 something years in a district. I don't think that is, going to be the future of education. That being said, a new teacher coming in, you would want to make sure, first and foremost, when they do come in, that they have that building block, that step for them to realize that they're given the professional development to make sure they're doing the inclusion model the right way, and B, they have that ongoing avenue of assistance or support if they do have questions along the way. That's important because they are new. One of the things I tell our new staff here is, don't be afraid to ask questions. I want you to ask questions. So, moving forward and saying that, just because you ask questions means you don't know what you're doing, I think it's the exact opposite. I think being, introspective and knowing that you don't know everything, you're learning on the job, like most people do.
yeah,
Most people learn on the job. You go to college, you get your things, you do your student teaching, but most of the time you're learning on the job, and you're honing your craft the first couple of years as to how you're going to be as a teacher. And making sure that they have that time to make that connection with that inclusion partner. It's so important for that time to be as valuable as any other time that you're going to give them for any other subject, is to have that time with their inclusion partner, so that they could build a relationship, set the tone for the year, and have that understanding about what type of inclusion environment they both want to create.
and also coming from a point of view, right? Like for the new staff, we can do this. What happens to the older staff, like the ones which have been there for a longer time? Do you make sure that they upskill themselves too? Because there's new techniques, new research backed data that keeps coming in. There's new curriculum being developed. And even the state standards do change, not regularly enough. as I would want it to, but like still, right? Like they still go and have an accreditation every 4 or 5 years.
I think that I use the term, and I've said it a couple of times that, do you want to be a teacher that taught 30 years, or do you want to be a teacher that taught 1 year 30 times? Right. And when you think about that, there are teachers that teach subjects realistically that could be that teacher that taught 1 year 30 times because most of their subject matter doesn't truly change. Standards might, but the subject matter that they're teaching doesn't. But going back to your original question is you really have to make sure that it's an intriguing nature to how you're presenting information. The fact that they want to learn regardless if they're year 1 or year 30. A big push now is to make sure that it's not a one and done, right? You can't institute something, shoot it out there in an initial PD, and then never talk about it or never give ongoing PD after that initial one. Some of us are guilty. We do that. We go out, we go to a conference, we come back with this great idea, and all of a sudden, like, that's what we're going to do in our school. You have a one and done PD, you throw out the program, and there's not ongoing support for it. And it kind of dies where you started. So with that, the 30-year teacher has to be one that's felt supported in new initiatives, new standards, new programs that you're going to bring in, just as supported as that first year. And it goes with administrative oversight as well. You got to have that administrative buy-in to start. As a superintendent, you come in, you want to do certain things, you got to talk to your administrative team first. If your administrative team is not really clear on where we're going with that, kind of have to put the brakes on it and make sure that that happens. Because if not, it's not going to roll out the right way. And it's not going to be followed up the right way.
Absolutely. I think a lot of retraining needs to be there, a lot of hand-holding initially versus, having the teacher train the model, like trainers train the next lot.
Right.
Those are the key cornerstones. And
Definitely.
coming from this to even the IEP meetings, right? Because whenever families hear the word IEP, it's just it sounds as much of a taboo as anything else that comes across. How do you deal with that? How do you provide that support and collaboration and even communication that it's okay if there's an IEP? It's all right. We still got this.
Right. So the first thing with a family is to make sure they understand the levels of supports that were done prior to reaching that IEP stage. It comes from being transparent, being honest, having the data to support the interventions that are put into play for a child, and making sure that all along the way, the parent is with you on that journey. And then when it comes time, when and if the child requires that individualized education program or plan, they understand that this is a work in progress. It can be amended at any time. You could have another IEP meeting a month later if something's not working right. Right? That the goal here is to collectively work as a team, but also trust the educational professionals that are working with your child. They've went to the master's programs. They've done the training. They've been a part of many, many years of working with special education students. A lot of parents coming out to the IEP meetings, this is their first exposure to special education. So I think it's important that there's that envelope of trust that needs to be developed right away. And I talk about, if you're hanging on by a thread with a parent relationship and there's a thread of trust left, there's still something, right? So you want to rebuild that fabric back up. And you want to be able to give that blanket of trust now. You want to be able to build that blanket back up. So are there moments when there are agreements to disagree? Yes. That's why there are processes put into play by the state, due process hearings, mediation. It's going to happen. You're never going to have the whole population of special education parents agree with what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a couple that are going to not agree, and that's okay. I think it's just a matter of the people speaking on behalf of the school, the child, come across honest and genuine. And I say this to people that I talk to, case managers, administrators. You can't teach genuineness. You can't.
Yeah.
When somebody talks to you, there's a sense of they're really meaning what they're saying, right? And sometimes you get the opposite, where you have that shaky voice and that hesitancy in somebody to say something, and it comes across like they're trying to make stuff up.
Yeah.
So if you could come across genuine in nature, I think that goes a long way in both the relationship with the parent, the IEP meeting, and ultimately the road forward with that child.
I 100% agree. I think being authentic, self, and genuine.
Another word, I love it, authentic. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the ways to go about it. Specifically, once you are authentic, parents understand it and like the families take it well.
And again, I don't know necessarily. I don't know necessarily if that is teachable. Like I said, I don't know if that's teachable. I if it was, I'd probably bottle it up and sell it. But I don't know if that's teachable.
In my opinion, it is. I think it takes a while to get there. It's not easy cup of tea. It's like a medicine to be authentic because it can hurt. It also is like a mirror. It shows where your own weaknesses are, because one of the reasons why we are not authentic is when we want to hide and like not just be it is tough. It's not easy.
Right.
And that's why
Right.
it's a medicine. I think
Yeah.
once you are, see,
Yeah, it's a lot of retrospective looking at how you come across, getting feedback from others,
yeah.
and taking that feedback and making that change, right?
So, I mean, I wish I could put it in a bottle and sell it across to everyone, because I think it's teachable. I've had a great mentor who taught me that we should look at possibilities in the future and not something in the back. And when you look at the future, you can transform yourself. You can be authentic to people, because
Yeah,
all good relationships work on authenticity.
no doubt, no doubt. I definitely agree with that. Definitely.
And from there, when we look at future ready skills, right? Like, and we have a conversation about it, like, how do you see that shaping up? Specifically, this current age of AI and like you said, social media. I'm gonna bring it back to internet days and then
Right,
social media,
right,
and now
right.
AI. What's the things that get them ready?
Yeah, I think from a standpoint of now looking forward, it's a big push is problem solving.
Yeah.
That's a future ready skill. It is figuring out how to work past something. Whether that something is something in your life, something in your job, something, affecting a family member. A lot of that requires assistance and being able to know where to get that assistance, right? Whether you're in a classroom environment and saying, okay, this is my problem. How do I get to where I want to get to? Maybe I do need to use AI. Maybe I do need to look at the kid next to me, and ask him, hey, how'd you do that? That's a great idea. Reaching out to the teacher, going to the guidance counselor if you're having an issue with a social problem, right? So I think that's the life skill that is going to be needed the most and has always been needed the most. Really, truly is problem solving and not being afraid to take risks to have that problem solved. There's so many people that are hesitant. They are too cautious to make change in order to get that problem solved, right? And I'm going to say problem. It could be a situation, reach a goal. You get where I'm going with that, right? So I think that's what it is having those abilities to take your toolkit, right? The one that you were either given, the one that you have, or the one that you can borrow from somebody else and put it in your toolkit to help solve a problem or get to a goal to where you need to be. That's going to be that future ready. It's always been there. I think more and more with technology and with some of AI playing into it, the generations ahead are going to need to learn how to utilize what's given to them to problem solve and to not shy away from taking chances, making change, and taking risks.
And I'm going to play a bit of a devil's advocate here, because what you said about problem solving and using AI also to do that, most educators right now believe it's cheating. It's academic disintegrity, right? Like everything,
Right.
like it's not authentic when they use AI as assistants. What is your take on the whole thing? Because students are going to use it. They are always advanced with the whole tech, but teachers
Yeah.
themselves are a little on the back foot, don't understand what's happening. So
I gave we did a professional development opening day, and I thought about the way people look at AI, and I gave an example to my daughter who's in college, and I thought about that, and I'm saying to myself, here I am, I'm gonna equate AI to the best crutches possible that a doctor's going to give you to get to where you're going to want to be in the fastest way possible. Right? Now, educators might think, well, I didn't give them a car, right? So I didn't give them something that they shouldn't be using, children. I gave them the best crutches possible.
yeah.
Right? And they want to use them. They know how to use them, and they're going to get to that place where they want to be without wasting time. And I think that's the biggest thing where AI is going to benefit education, administrators, students, is the getting back of time. I can't tell you the amount of energy, bandwidth, however you want to call it, that I got back when I discovered how my job can incorporate AI. And I think that, there are capacities and warnings of how to use AI the right way with children. But for the most part, if you look at, and again, what I think is going to wind up happening in education is there's going to be a mandated course in AI.
Yeah.
It's going to be within the curriculum within the next year or so. You're going to much like financial literacy was put into, you're going to have a course on AI. It's going to be mandated. There's going to be standards. There's going to be everything. It's going to be that prevalent in education. It's given. So I think if you do it the right way, you lay it out, you roll it out, you embrace it, and don't shy away from utilizing this technology, it's going to pay dividends in the future for these kids.
I 100% agree. I think it's already a norm. Everyone's building their own policies around it and the guardrails
Right.
that's needed. I think that's going to happen this year. And next year is when the implementation would start at a more massive scale. It's already happening.
Right.
Like
Oh, yeah.
Like there are districts who are applying it. I was speaking with someone and they were just like hearing about different things which they're doing was insane. Like it's called Pleasant View School District.
Yeah.
It's just an amazing job what they have done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's here. It's not going away. We have to embrace it and run with it and make sure that we're uh, allowing educators and children to use the platforms that are out there. I mean, again, it's kind of like a doctor saying, no, you can't use those crutches because you have because you want to get there faster.
Yeah,
Doesn't make sense.
it does.
So,
I'm going to ask you last two questions. One is an advice for the other superintendent or a principal who's facing budget cuts, but you
right.
give them one small practical step that they can make it more inclusive classrooms or practices. What that step
Right.
would look like?
Um, being from having experience in smaller districts, I understand budget constraints. The one thing that I would say that I would always look at is my leaders in special education that I could foster their experience into um, being mentors to others. Not mentor in the same way as a first year mentor for teachers, but just being somebody that is going to be relied upon if that new teacher needs to ask that question, right? And embracing that leadership role from that standpoint of that staff member and knowing that it's a good thing that I'm being called upon because that means that my merit as an educator is high and that I should, love the fact that more educators are coming to me. So that's the one non-fiscal thing that you can do is to foster your educators that have those skill sets. It could be in special ed, could be in AI, whatever it may be, is to target those and foster them and bring them into the fold, so to say, to make them uh, your key liaisons for these particular areas. Doesn't cost money if you do it the right way.
This is the only question which is absolutely away from the topic because
All
it's
right.
a question which the previous superintendent, like the previous podcaster, left for us and like
Bring
the
it on.
leader.
All right.
It was from a place where it was negative sentiments are being harbored against the public schools. People are going towards charter, private, even homeschooling. So, how do we restore faith in the public school education system? What do we do?
Well, I don't know necessarily if the faith in public education has weaned. I think that people are looking at other ways to educate, but I don't see from a standpoint of public education, because remember, charter is still public, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking, if you're looking at traditional public schools is one thing, but I think from a standpoint of being able to tout what a public education can give you, the exposure to all types of people, being a part of different activities that are going to give you a well-rounded education, right? When you look at online components, when you look at homeschooling, it still does not give you that well-rounded education that a public pre-K to 12 district can do because of the establishment of what they have for years, for what their guidance is from the Department of Education and the county level, and being able to have those resources, those grants, those federal grants, those state grants, and building the programs that are out there to give that well-rounded education. I don't think there's anything like that you can compare that to and say that it's better. Plain and simple.
Thank you so much. This has been
You're welcome.
absolutely intriguing to have this conversation with you.
You got it. I appreciate the time, and I hope that what I say gives benefit for those that are watching. And the ultimate goal, always in mind, is you give 110% to positively affect the educational journeys of children. If you can lay your head down on that pillow every night saying that that's what you did, then you've succeeded.
Thanks for the last bit of tidbit of wisdom, because I think if we can all sleep well, we know we have done a great job.
That's it. I appreciate the time, and I wish you well.